devices. Record to the cloud. Oh, not on my computer. Record to the cloud. Cool. So welcome everyone. If you want to say hi in the chat, we'd love to know where you're joining from. So go ahead and say hi as we're getting started, and we are beaming out across the internet. So if you're watching somewhere else, just know that you can find us on back in the webinar itself. Won't be checking in on the LinkedIn stream and the YouTube stream and the Facebook stream, other than to know that they are streaming and live. So welcome in, folks. I'm really excited about this conversation here. Tutor's here from SpeechifAi, talking about toolkits that actually get engagement. Tutor, I guess one of the things, introduce yourself, but also I can't remember how long we've been collaborating. I feel like kind of you guys were like pretty early into the ball game when we started working together, and I was using SpeechifAi as a tool.
Yeah, I think it's been 3 years. 3 years. I think since the early 2020.
Is that it? Oh my God! If you had asked, like, 5, maybe 6 years.
Yeah, it's been 3 years. I mean, it's 2 pandemic years that count like 10.
Yeah. I would have assumed it was before the pandemic, but yes, 2020 was the election cycle when you all were getting started, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Wild times. Hey everyone, my name is Tudor. I'm a co-founder at SpeechifAi. We are a tech platform that helps organizations drive organic social engagement. Our mission is to provide a reliable alternative to advertising and help orgs drive that traffic, those clicks, those impressions, those conversions in an organic way and in a reliable way, providing the right analytics, providing the right environment for them to meet their goals. And the way we do that is, as the title of the webinar says, through a tool called social share toolkits, which is a term that most progressive orgs are familiar with. We've taken that practice and we've developed a platform that can help orgs drive that efficiently and reliably.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. And I one of the things, I don't know if you're going to touch on this or not, but folks, if you weren't in our digital advertising summit, one of the like really exciting like cross pollinations of my worlds is I've been doing a lot more engagement, and they've been great sponsors this year with Grass Riots, a agency out of Canada. And they were like, hey, we actually want to do a session on SpeechifAi, how you can use their tool in place of paid advertising. And they're actually like going so far as to include a new benchmarks in campaigns as to like organic value driven, which I think is just like super fascinating, right? Like totally makes sense, right? Like as it's interesting. And I'll make sure to also share this link back to folks. I have the digital plan template that I just make free and available for folks and do webinars to walk through that. We'll do a new webinar next month because we've updated it so much over the last couple of years. It's interesting, like the layers of it is like we've added in, I'd always had like surrogates and influencers, and now though we've added influencers into digital advertising, and now I need to add a more clear section on organic social sharing and the I'm trying to remember the metric they use, but it's probably the same metric you use, like the value driven by organic that you can track. Yeah, Tudor, if you want to go ahead and jump into the session, I think that'd be great for folks.
Yeah, sure. I mean, a word that marketeers have been used to, a term that marketeers have been used to using for a while now is actually user-generated content. Which is right. So there's a lot of research done that user-generated content performs better than any form of ad, and we'll dive a little bit more into that right now. But this is a dream for us, right? We're a technology company. We want to make sure that talented folks who are building great campaigns, who are working with great nonprofits, can actually use SpeechifAi as a resource and to further their vision. And Grass Riots has a very clear vision of the impact that they want to create. So I'm really happy about that. Also, a little bit more about my background. because we'll touch today on a couple of aspects, including the use of AI. And I just wanted to share a little bit more about how I got to this. I've actually been in the civic technology space for around 10 years now. Built another platform before SpeechifAi that was connecting citizens to politicians through question and answer sessions. So social engagement with value. And then I did a PhD on how American presidents write their speeches. I've been fascinated about how content gets created. And I met my co-founder because I Googled AI for speech writing, and I found out that my co-founder Valentin had built an algorithm in 2016. So all the way before this generative AI hype, he had built an algorithm that was automating the writing of political speeches by analyzing congressional debates. So I'm coming into this space from multiple perspectives, wanting to make sure that regular folks have a way to maximize their voice on social media, and making sure that organizations actually have a reliable alternative to ads through something I really believe in, which is organic and social engagement. So yeah, and Brad, you've been one of the earliest adopters of our technology, been instrumental in giving us feedback on how to improve. And yeah, it's so exciting to have this conversation and be on a webinar together. Our second this week, actually. So
yeah. No, it's interesting. As you know, and as I was posting about today's webinar, I was like, immediately the tool solved a use case need that I had. Like, I had been helping organizations build shit. Like, I've been trying to tell organizations for years, like, please just stop sending people these Google Docs share. No one uses them. And like build a landing page. And so I was like manually building pages where you have to like, man, the like complicated backwards way to like get an image that is shareable to Twitter, because we had to like load it and like all of these things. So yeah, I like that like the first thing that you all did like solved a huge use case for me, and then all of the evolution since then has solved a whole lot more. So yeah, go ahead and share, and I'm going to mute myself for a bit.
And the reason for it is, so our philosophy is that the best technology is technology that solves a real client problem, a real customer problem, right? And that's what we've been doing. We're actually learning from digital organizers what to build and what to build next. And that's why it resonates with folks, because we're trying to look at the inefficient ways of doing things right now and just use technology to make it more efficient. So happy to hear that. So let's get into it. The topic of today's session is actual toolkits that scale social engagement and reach. And I was saying, my name is Tudor. I'm a co-founder of SpeechifAi. You can connect with me on Twitter, on LinkedIn. And you can see here our handles. What we'll go through today is we'll first set the context. Why is user-generated content important? Then we will look at the main goals you can accomplish through organic social sharing. How do you create a community of sharers? How do you encourage activists to do social sharing about your campaign? Then how to create an effective social toolkit. And the next one, which is something that has been on my mind a lot lately, SpeechifAi also does work here, is how to use AI to generate engaging content. Then the last bit here is how do you encourage authentic social sharing? So we'll take each of these in time. Brad, the recording will be made available to folks afterwards too, right?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
So this is a great way to use this also in the future. You can come back to these points whenever you want guidance on building an organic social share toolkit, whether you choose to do that through SpeechifAi or you choose to do it on your own or with other tools. This is intended to actually provide the ABC on how to do that, and also some advanced learning points that we've gathered around the years. Why us to speak about this? Well, since SpeechifAi started in 2019, we actually helped some of the biggest and most impactful progressive orgs and campaigns, including Planned Parenthood, NARAL, the Biden-Harris campaign, the Wisconsin Dems, built toolkits that received 1.5 million visitors and generated user-generated content worth around $40 million. Brad, you're mentioning that marketing value of user-generated content, so we'll also go through that and better understand what that is. But first, why is user-generated content important? So a couple of snippets of information here. People trust brand information shared by their friends and family much more than they trust advertising. Brand information is also organizational information, right? So whatever, in this case, we speak of nonprofits, we speak of campaigns. If they want to get their information out there, they have a higher chance of reaching their goals if the community members of that organization are sharing that with their friends and networks rather than paying for advertising. There's a lot of research out there. This is just one of the points mentioned. I know that a lot of orgs these days are actually experimenting with influencers, which is one step further towards user-generated content. But one thing that most folks don't know is that in this case, consumers or users, consumers of information, actually find user-generated content close to 10 times more impactful than influencer content. Because again, it's the social connections that they're building. Why now? Why do we speak about this now? Well, one thing to keep in mind is that social networks have been around for a while. Right, so 82% of US adults have at least one social account where they've built networks of friends, family, followers, and so on. Like Facebook is 20 years old, right? 19 years old, soon to be 20 years old. Most people have already built a network online that is as extensive as their physical one. Which brings me to the next point. When orgs think of organic social media, in most cases, they actually think of building the organization's own socials, a Twitter page, a Facebook page, a TikTok page. One thing they miss here is that the likelihood is, and there's some stats on this, the last piece of info I'm sharing this is actually coming from the world of employee advocacy, so companies, but this is as relevant. So an organization's followers, because they've been on social media for the last 10, 15, 20 years, are actually likely to have a network that is 10x larger than the organization's own follower base on that particular social network. So in other words, if your organization has 10,000 followers on Twitter or on Facebook, the social connections, the followers that the people on your email list have on social networks are at least 10x larger than that 10,000 followers you have on social media. So getting them to post to their networks can actually be as impactful, if not much, much, much more impactful than the organization only posting on its socials. So these are some of the orgs we've been working with in the last 2 years, in the last 3 years, NARAL, Indivisible, Planned Parenthood, Wisconsin Dems, Red, White, and Blue, Field Team 6, and others. And one really interesting fact, because as digital organizers are looking to implement organic social share toolkits in their organizations, one thing that comes to mind is, okay, what is the value of a user-generated share? And we actually have a very precise answer. It's $88. How we came up with this was we track when a post is being shared through a social share toolkit, the engagement that post is generated. So a real human takes a draft post, they customize it, and then they post it on their own social media. That post generates clicks, impressions, and even conversions, which is they convince one of their friends to donate or sign up for an event or so on. If you calculate the marketing value of these very tangible outcomes, impressions, clicks, and conversions, and we did that, and we divided that by all of the shares, all of the user-generated content that was created and shared through SpeechifAi in the last 3 years, which is around 700,000 unique posts, you end up at an average of $88. $88 is just in the last year, right? So we wanted to make it relevant, so only focused on the last year. If you look at all of the posts generated through SpeechifAi in the last year, and you divide that by the marketing value overall, you end up with $88. So for people attending the call, if you get asked, okay, what is the value of this? Why should we invest in this? You can give this very tangible number. Okay, so what can you achieve through organic social sharing or user-generated content if your community members are sharing? The answer is everything you can achieve through advertising or influencer marketing. You can change the narrative. Right? This is the work that that folks are doing specifically on Twitter, where you want to make sure that a certain piece of information or a certain perspective on current events or on what your organization is doing, what your political strategy is, actually gets disseminated, and a lot of people are listening to this. This is very important, especially in a world where there is a lot of misinformation and disinformation out there. In a world like that, trusted messengers are very crucial because, again, people turn to trust. If you see a random ad telling you something, you'll be like, should I believe in this or not? But if you see one of your friends posting something, you'll probably surely trust that more. The second thing is donations. One of the things we saw that works very well is once someone donates, then providing them with suggested messaging, suggested social copy that they can then share with their friends to also encourage them to donate. This is very, very valuable, and this is where most organizations get fundraising wrong. They stop at the, hey, donate, ask. A very common practice is if someone has donated once, then you ask them to donate again. And if they don't donate again, that's it. That's the end of the story. Whereas in this case, you're asking them to do something that is actually much more valuable, which is to bring you other people who may also want to donate from their network, from their close network. And we've seen that this is very, very successful. So the conversion rates on user-generated posts can be up to 10x higher than advertising. So integrating toolkits in the journey of a donor, of a grassroots donor, can be very, very effective. Third one is recruit volunteers for other actions. Like, so if you don't raise money, you're probably list building or getting volunteers for very specific things. This has also been very successful. And again, the same thing. You get your activists or people on your email list to share posts with their friends to ask them to sign up for phone banking, for door knocking, for postcards, to sign up for events, which is the next point on this list, and so on. Another way, and this also goes back to the what we call post-action sharing strategy, is, and for folks attending Netroots Nation, you'll see that at Netroots, because Netroots is using SpeechifAi toolkits to encourage speakers and attendees to share that they're attending, is once someone signs up for an event, give them a social share toolkit to tell their networks that they're joining this event, they're speaking at this event, they're sponsoring this event. Right now, most orgs that do events create these toolkits manually. They cannot track them. that well. It's very difficult to copy those posts manually, download the assets and so on. So coming up with a more streamlined way to do that is very important, and it is very effective. We have organizations who generate tens of thousands of page views and signups, tens of thousands of dollars worth of organic clicks on their event pages and signups, just by giving their attendees an effective toolkit for them to post about what they're doing. The fifth thing here is virtual rallies. So just like the way people go to protests in person, they can also go to rallies online. These happen mostly on Twitter, where you can ask users to post at one particular point in time together, so that you can actually get a hashtag to trend, which again goes back to the change the narrative objective. Okay, so one of the most daunting things for an organization that is just getting started is, okay, how do I create this community of sharers? Is this something that, do I just build a toolkit and then people will share? Or do I need to do something else? And the answer is, it's a little bit of both. So one key thing here to understand is, someone who does not use social media will not become a social media user just because you give them a toolkit, because they have no networks built, right? But the people who are already using social media, which is they're using social media to keep updated on the current news on Twitter, for instance, or they use social media to be in touch with their friends on Facebook or on Instagram, or they use social media for their professional purposes on LinkedIn. They've already built a network. Most users have networks of at least a few hundred people on their one social media platform. Many of them also amass 500, 1,000, 200, or 2,000 or 3,000 if they're actually using multiple social networks. These people already have the network, so it's easy for them to start posting about the content you would like them to post, rather than people just starting from scratch. This is important. See, we have a question, so I just want to... Twitter algorithm is constantly changing and will rank content with same copy lower. Will this impact templatized copy in Toolkit? How do we create customized content and scale? This is an excellent question. With your permission, I'll get back to this in a couple of minutes because we're actually treating this on a different in a different section. But this is an excellent question, and I have a couple of points here that are actually super, I think would be very relevant. The second thing is build online spaces. So here, it's very important to create community building spaces online. So do you have already an email list? Do you already have events that your community is attending? Do you build, some orgs build amplification communities where different activists are sharing content they've posted and others can retweet that or take inspiration from it. It's very important to build online spaces, just like you build physical spaces for your communities. This is not necessarily connected to social sharing. So social sharing needs to be a consequence of something. Social sharing does not happen just outright. You need to build a community, and then if you actually build that community right, people will be very willing to share. The third thing is meet people where they're at. One of the biggest mistakes I see with orgs who start to promote organic social sharing is they commission an app, right? They create an app just for social sharing, and then they tell folks, Why don't you download
This
my
hurts
app?
my soul. This hurts my soul so
Really,
much.
like it's really like, to me, it's mind-boggling. So they ask people, why don't you download my app and also connect your social so that we know what your activity is, and share what we're telling you. And most folks don't sign up for that.
Yeah, $50,000 later, they got 5 shares.
Um, yeah. So, Brad, do you want to elaborate on this? Because I know you have strong views on.
Very strong feelings on this. Because as a digital director, like before I was doing all of this work, even in early, well, that must have been 2016, 2015. I was at an organization, and it wasn't even an app we were building, but it was like a third-party organization was like, oh, we're gonna build this app, and we're gonna get influencers to use the app, and everyone's gonna use this app, and it's like that's the way people are gonna drive social sharing. And I was like, hey, I've, the whole app craze was just starting, and having been in Obama world, like I watched the we got some adoption from the app, but a lot of folks just stayed on the web-based use. Like I just already knew that like downloading an app was a really hard ask, and then like to get people to use an app consistently. And and the funny thing is, people, yes, we all have apps we use every day, but the majority of those apps are also used by like millions of other people. There are very few apps that are like these abstract, and because they they serve a consistent function, or they replace a function that made our life easier. But like going to a third-party app to share something via social is not an experience that anyone actually wants. And so yeah, like how do you make it easier? And and I was still like, it's landing pages, right? It's like, share this via a landing page, because a landing page works for any browser type, on any if it's mobile optimized on which if you somehow are still building pages that aren't mobile optimized, like we need to have a bigger conversation.
Yeah, makes sense.
But yeah, it pains me, right? Because like the cheapest you can get an app typically still is like $50,000, not including staff time, right? Like staff time, and like yeah. So if anyone, even if someone's trying to get you to use a third-party app that they're going to tell you is going to drive all of these shares for you, it's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And there are use cases for paid influencers may be willing to actually download an app and connect their socials, and then have their entire activity on social being fully monitored.
Yeah.
But regular folks are not really willing to do that, because they're donating something, they're donating time, they're donating resource, they're donating social clout. So they expect that to be very easy for them, because they're giving you something. And what we learned here is that need to make sure, if you already use a Slack channel, for instance, for organizing, you should post the toolkits in that Slack channel. If you do events, you should embed those toolkits in the confirmation page after the event, after someone was confirmed for an event. If you want folks to share about an article, well, embed the toolkit on the article. Someone reads the article, then they can share it easily, right? So really, where, as a consequence of an action, right? It is that easy, and it needs to be timely. When folks feel like taking an action, should be able to take it easily in one click, not go sign up for an app, download the app, go through a secure sign up process to then get into the app, and then get the content for them to share, and then learn how to use that app before they can share it. So that's not what most people want to do. Then how do you encourage activists to do social sharing about your campaign? And this, we already spoke about some of these things here already. So it's very important to create trust, which you do in a few ways. It's important to build that community. It's important to explain to folks why it's important to share. So educating them of how powerful their voice is online is actually very important. That's why we do all of this thought leadership around. This is the value of a social share. So if both campaigners and their communities understand how valuable this is, then they would do it more. We all hear these stories of campaigns that raise hundreds of millions of dollars. They spend those on ads and they don't move anything. And we also know that the best campaigns invest in relational organizing that happens offline mostly. But with the online world actually becoming an extension of our physical world, relational organizing can happen a lot online. And getting folks to post content is one of the easiest ways to do that properly. Which brings me to the second one, why it's critical to share. If you explain to your community, hey, we have this goal, we think that if you share on your socials, we will meet this goal. This is what we're tracking, by the way. So one of the best examples of progressive orgs using SpeechifAi is Field Team 6. It's an organization that registers Democrats to vote. They literally have a counter of how many impressions they've generated, the value of that in money. And then they tell activists every time, they remind them every time, hey, thanks for coming to our training on how you can post on social media. In the last year, we've generated, actually in the last 2 years, they generated 4 billion impressions on all social networks, which is worth around $10 million just in organic traffic. They remind them of that. If you share, you will help us meet our goals. Just like it happens with donations, right? So, hey, if you donate this much, you will help us meet our goals more easily. Then you need to learn and then teach your users on how to post for the target audience. This is super important because users, so I have a really favorite story here. So Lori Coleman, who is the co-founder of Demcast, they're one of our earliest adopters, tells the story quite a lot. She lives in a red state, and then she was posting actively on Twitter, but almost never did she post on Facebook because she wasn't sure how to engage with the people in her network who were at best independents. If not Republicans, and most folks need guidance on that. That's why the organizations building toolkits should think of who they're sharing these toolkits with, and then provide suggested posts that take that audience into account, like teaching folks how they should engage with people in their social networks who may have different opinions. Alleviate social anxiety. So one of the things we noticed here is that most folks are afraid to post on their own, especially at the beginning. So giving them suggested copy and assuring them that that social copy was created by professionals who know is very important. Bringing back to the question that one of the attendees had, indeed, so Twitter is downgrading posts that are similar, but it's not clear. There needs to be a certain number of posts that are fully similar for the reach to go down, right? If it's 1 or 2, it's probably not. We're speaking here of tens of thousands of posts. Or hundreds. It depends. It really depends. It's an algorithm. So like the way it does things is not like rule-based. It takes many variables into account. That being said, so it's very important to provide the suggested draft as just starting points for a user to create their own post. Because if they were to start from scratch, they'll probably not write anything meaningful or compelling because most people are not marketing pros. So if you give them a draft with the main points, then they can start writing their own post. One of the things here, and this is part of the educational drive. So actually, SpeechifAi helps create content through AI that can create multiple variations of content that then users can use. But we've had an educational journey with our customers, with the digital organizers and the vice presidents of comms at the organizations who are reluctant to give away control. They're like, I want to make sure that that copy that I'm using, that is exactly what our users are sharing. And then we need to explain that these users need to generate their own unique content. So there is ways to create multiple variations. But there also the progressive community and organizations need to understand that they cannot fully control what their community members will be posting, and that within certain boundaries of providing them with a draft that gives them the main idea of what the post should be, and then encouraging them to customize it is actually the best way to go about it. And SpeechifAi has built some of these customization functionalities that are controlled in a certain way. The last point here, which is very important, donating social clout is very valuable. Right? Going back to that initial metric, it's worth $88 per share. Right? If you want a very tangible metric, obviously this can vary, but simplifying it, that's basically what it is. How do you create an effective social media toolkit? There's a couple of things here. You need to think of post structure. When I was studying speech writing, I understood that in an effective justification campaign, you actually want to emphasize various elements throughout it. So not all posts should mention everything, right? You can actually create multiple posts that tell a story overall. Like, so one activist may be posting about the problem. Someone else may be posting about the proposed solution. Someone else may be posting about the motivation for taking action. And creating these posts that way actually makes a lot of sense. The toolkit structure is also an interesting one. Sorry, I think I mixed these two. Toolkit structure, create posts that speak to different things. Post structure, one of the very important things here is there's no need to repeat in the text of the post what's already in an image. If you actually use an image with text on it, there's no need to add the same text both in the image and in the post, both in the image and in the text, right? Do them differently. The sharers actually, both the sharers and their networks choose the post primarily, the post gets their attention primarily because of the image. So I would recommend that folks put a lot of time into creating the good images. There's also organizations out there who specialize in creating great graphics. Into Action is one of them, for instance. Should check them out. They create amazing GIFs, collection of GIFs. A lot of their content is free. So you can also use that to make sure that your posts attract attention and convey and are expressive. If you have a graphic designer in-house, then that's also a great way to do that. Another thing to keep in mind is that there's big differences between the social networks, and that gets me to the other point and goes back to the question that one of the attendees had. Sorry, you all didn't mention your name, so I'm just referring you like this. Every algorithm is unique. And this is actually, so the first snippet about the AI, the algorithms changed massively in the last few years without us even realizing it. So up until a few years ago, algorithms were rule-based, which meant a developer specified rules for how content should be shown in news feeds. So it would be something like, if you add more than 5 hashtags in a post on LinkedIn, then we will downgrade that post. Or if you have 10 capitalized words, we'll consider that you're shouting at people, so we will downgrade that. Or and so on, right? So content with more than 500 characters will perform better on Facebook. The algorithms have changed, and they've changed to operate like neural networks. Neural networks work like the brain. You cannot really explain fully why a human takes an action in a very particular instance, because we process so many different stimuli that the action is actually the cause of all of those. It's the same thing with an algorithm. It's called the recommender system that shows you posts. And every one of these social networks has a different algorithm that is built differently. We can tell how the algorithm may act in certain ways, but the truth is we can never fully predict that. And every platform is doing things differently. So I want to show you how a social share toolkit looks like, what the social share toolkit looks like on SpeechifAi. I just wanted to mention there's various ways to create toolkits. There's other organic social sharing platforms out there. And I want to mention a few. You can look at Greenfly, that is an app, for instance. You can look at Social Press Kit. You can look at Organize, and so on. What distinguishes us and our vision is grounded in everything I've just told you, that social sharing should be easy, should be integratable wherever your sharers are, that they should receive great guidance on social copy, that they can easily customize in a controlled way, and that artificial intelligence can help make both the digital organizer's job easier in creating the posts and also the sharer's job easier in customizing those posts, all the while keeping the human in the loop. That being said, different visions on how user-generated content happen can lead to different ways to build and create. So wanted to show you what a social share toolkit looks like. I'm actually using a demo here. This is created specifically for fundraising. So it's good to add multiple social networks for folks to share, because some of them may have a stronger network on Facebook. Some of them may have a stronger network on Twitter. There's also differences in how these platforms operate. For instance, if you want impressions, you should use Twitter more. If you want clicks, then Facebook and LinkedIn are probably your best choice. And LinkedIn is actually great at getting people to click on. If you want valuable conversions, that you should probably build posts that your community members should share on a direct messaging platform like WhatsApp or SMS or Telegram or Signal and so on. The posts should actually be optimized for that particular social network. So you see here an example of that. This is how the posts look on Twitter. As the attendee was mentioning, it's very important to also customize. So it's good to actually offer a very controlled way for the user to actually insert their own thoughts if they want to be guided, or just for them to customize the full post easily. As I was mentioning, it's important to give them guidance on how to actually create the posts for different social networks. So this is an example of how an activist would share with one friend about a fundraising drive, right? So they have the link already here. They have a draft text that is made personal. They can just add the name of the friend and then customize it further. And then when they click on customize and share, they're being taken on the social network, and then they can share it easily. Folks can toggle between the different platforms. When they choose to share, they simply click on customize and share, takes them to that social network. It carries everything in, and then they can share that easily. Cool. So I will I'm just switching my screens here. So apologies for stopping screen share. I'll activate it the way again. Then I wanted to spend a couple of minutes on how you can use AI to create more engaging content. So everyone, or maybe many people on the call, have heard about this new thing that seems to be new. It's called generative AI, which is artificial intelligence platforms that can create language for us, so help us draft content. And I have two pieces of advice here. The first one is, as a digital organizer, as a comms specialist, you try to test the softwares that specialize in very specific use cases. So rather than just trying to create posts on your own, or prompts on your own, or using tools, AI tools for everything, go to those tools that already have built a great software for a very specific use case. Is that fundraising? Is that social media posting? Is that email creation, and so on? And see how they integrate AI, because they know a lot about you as the customer, so they have a lot of insights on your needs, and they can actually deliver an AI product that works for you. And then look at whether by them integrating AI, does that save you substantial time? Does that maximize the results of what your output is in significant way, right? Is that 2x? Is that 5x? Is that 10x? But there needs to be an improvement. Other than that, then there's probably not then the AI won't make a difference, right? So AI needs to be a way to create more efficient software. If you don't find an AI power tool, and there's so many of them out there, I'll actually share an article in the chat. There's a Higher Ground Labs article. Higher Ground Labs is one of the investors in this space that put out a series of tools for progressive organizations to use, that are using AI, and they're doing it effectively. If you don't find a tool that can match that, experiment with prompts for generic AI models. Like, generic models are models that can be used for everything. And for instance, ChatGPT, DALL-E 2, Stable Diffusion, and so on. You need to experiment with those because you need to create the prompts manually. But if you don't find a good AI tool for your specific use case, you can start playing with some of these. And I wanted to show you two examples of it, of how we do this at SpeechifAi. Stop my screen again to take an example. So how we started using AI at SpeechifAi is to actually help digital organizers create good content for those toolkits. And what we often hear is that a digital organizer may have a post that they're putting on their own social networks, but they don't have the time or the inspiration to create variations for their sharers and optimize it for every social network. So going back to the question that one of the attendees had, you need to optimize it for the algorithm. And so SpeechifAi does that, right? So I'll give you an example here. So let's say I want my activists to share this. This post, I actually took it from the Biden, the official Joe Biden social media page. And I want them to share on Twitter. I want them to share on Facebook and on Instagram. And I say, hey, I want to save this to my toolkit. Takes a couple of seconds to load the image. This is the fun thing about live demos. And then, so we actually prompt the digital organizer and tell them, hey, why don't you optimize this post? You don't want your shares on each social network to share the same thing, and also to make sure it's optimized. So I'll choose the platforms here again. And then I'll click on generate copy. So we generate new posts based on that draft for each of these social network variations that they think that take into account what we know gets engagement on each social network. And then these posts are being generated automatically. As you can see, Twitter, very short, matches the 280 characters. Facebook is longer. And then Instagram, somewhere in the middle, more hashtags on Instagram. So there's a lot of formatting insights into this. And then an organization can change this quite a bit. So let's say I want to change the tone of it. And this is where we were speaking about the different demographics. So let's say I want to create a suggested post that a Gen Zer would want to use. And I'll use this one as an example. And I'll just add a tone of voice like Gen Z. And I'll click regenerate. So the algorithm will actually rewrite this post for me the way a Gen Zer will say things. You see, you can regenerate it, you can create multiple variations, but this is how you can use AI to really improve things. And digital organizers always review this, right? So AI is being used to just generate content, and then that a human actually approves. Another thing I wanted to show you is, so let's say I've just donated to my favorite organization, and then I want to create a post from that. This can also happen individually as a user. I'm just showing you an example of how you could, for instance, use ChatGPT which is the big language model, to do a similar thing. Right, so you have here a fundraising page, and let's say I've just donated for it, and then I want to share about it. Then one thing you could do is you can show you in a second. You can go to ChatGPT, go to use GPT-4, which is a bigger language model, and then create a post for it. This is hard. Like creating the right post prompt for a big language model is difficult, right? So this could sound something like this. Prompts that SpeechifAi is generating are actually much more complex because we have a lot of data. But you could also create one manually that sounds something like this. Just donated for my favorite org. Can you create a tweet and a Facebook post for me that I can share with my networks to let them know that I donated and encourage them to do the same? You can use this text from the donation page to make the post more relevant. And then you copy part of that fundraising page. And then you ask the ChatGPT to create the posts, and it creates them for you. You can do this with emails. You can do this with even fundraising pages themselves, creating those. But as I was emphasizing, it's actually better to use AI tools that have already been built to solve your specific use case rather than going there and building and trying to build your own prompts, because it's difficult to get it right and it'll probably take you a lot of time. But if you're interested in that, this is an example of how to do it right. I'm mindful we're almost at the mark, so I wanted to give a couple of minutes time also for questions, and see if folks have any questions. If not, I can also provide some other insights.
Yeah, and Tutor, more waiting for questions. You want to make sure we share. I know you're going to give a discount to folks who sign up, and I think for clarity, just so I know, right, they just need to sign up for a SpeechifAi account. They don't need to sign up for a paid account. If they just sign up for an account, if they do sign up for a paid model, they get the discount then, right?
That's correct. Yeah. So yeah, so we provide 20%. If in this case, if they actually purchase a subscription by the end of the month.
Okay.
Right. So they can play with it. They can test it in the next few days, and by the end of the month, if they want to purchase a subscription, they get a discount. But we also have a discount for nonprofits. We also have a discount for longer term uses. So we want to make sure that folks actually get all of the support and guidance they need.
Awesome.
And the promo code is CDS 2023.
Cool. Folks have any questions for Tutor? and you go wide ranging, just like, on how other campaigns have worked, how you might use this for your organization. I, I posted today and like, I really believe this as I was thinking about this. I was like, well, if you do, if you need to spread social messaging, you should probably use it. If you have petitions and actions you want people to engage with and share, you should probably use it. If you want to reach new users, you should probably use it. If you want to raise money, you should probably use it. Basically, if you do anything on the internet, you should probably use it, right? Like, that's really my thought on it, is like, the ease of use, ease of setup, the use case is for all organizations doing all things. This is kind of just like one of those things you should have in your toolkit. And if this was a wide suite, it's amazing to you shared some other tools that now do this. If this was a wide suite of tools, like, I'd be like, oh, make sure you have a social sharing toolkit platform sitting next to your CRM and your petitions and your donate tool, and then your social share tool. They're very few, and that's why I'm like, it should just be SpeechifAi, because there are very few in this space. So yeah, I just want to say thanks, Tutor, for coming in and sharing this with folks, and definitely reach out to Tutor. Tutor is here for the cause and for the mission. So if you have questions about this, how to use it for your organization, I know he shared his info earlier, so reach out to him. You can also reach out to me. One of the things I know is that all of the organizations I have recommended this to, they have continued to use it. It's become just part of their tool set. So, and even, I even know like an organization that really does most of the work around election time, they keep their subscription because it just still makes sense to keep around, because it's an easy thing to have on hand and ramp up for elections. So yeah, I mean, thanks, Tutor, not just for presenting today, but for all the things you're doing. And I, as an early user and not just someone who's sharing it now, know that like we had a lot of feedback back and forth about like, hey, how could we make this tool better? Here are some use cases of things we're doing. And so, I just really appreciate you doing that back and forth with folks all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So we take feedback. Like, every one of our customers is a partner, helping us to build a better tool to meet their needs. So that's how we approach this.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much, and everyone who joined today, thank you so much as well.
Thanks. Have a great day.